Welcome. You know that feeling when you are doing everything to make your relationship work, but somehow it still feels like something is missing? Maybe you're overthinking every text from your partner, or you're feeling very disconnected, or you're wondering if your partner really cares about you. What if I told you it's not about them, but it's actually about your unmet needs in your relationship that is running the show in the background, making you feel anxious, making you feel unworthy and not good enough, and even a little bit too much? Welcome to Identifying Your Unmet Needs, the secret to stop self-sabotage in your relationships. And once you figure out your unmet needs, everything changes. At least it did for me in my relationship years ago. And I'm still doing this constantly because it's so powerful. I used to self-sabotage in my romantic relationships, friendships, literally in any connection with my colleagues, any stranger I kind of met. And without really realizing this, because I didn't know my needs. And by the end of this episode, you will know your top 2 or 3 unmet needs, the ones that shape your relationships, or wrecking them. And you'll finally stop running on autopilot so you can start meeting them in healthy, conscious, more very intentional ways that really work for you. By the way, stick around for the end. I'm going to give you a shortcut to identify your unmet needs within just 3 minutes. So it's worth the wait, trust me. This, by the way, is part 2 of the Meet Your Relationship Needs series. In part 1, we talked about separating healthy from unhealthy needs. Go back to this episode to find also 7 journaling prompts to really get clarity on this. Disclaimer, I'm not a therapist or doctor. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or heal any mental health condition. If you're in an abusive relationship or dealing with severe mental health challenges, always seek professional advice. So if you don't know your needs yet, you will try to get them met unconsciously anyways. So this is where the self-sabotage actually happens. So a client of mine actually was checking her partner's locations. I think it was like 8 times a day, just to make sure he's safe and he's okay. And uncertainty was really the driver, that was her unmet needs. And she was feeling very anxious when she didn't know where her partner was and what he was doing. And also another need was, the certainty was also behind this, because deep down she was really scared of being abandoned. So here are some signs you might be outsourcing your needs and not really aware of that these are your needs that are driving your actions and maybe sabotaging you in ways that you are not even aware of. Needing constant reassurance but never really feeling fully secure, or over-texting, over-giving, and over-explaining to prove your worth subconsciously, or feeling resentful when your partner doesn't meet your unspoken expectations, or taking every little change in your partner's mood as a sign of something is wrong, something is not right. I have to keep checking on, hey, are you okay? Are we good? What's going on? Until your partner's mood is finally, normal or healthy, and until you guys are good again. If this sounds familiar, let me know in the comments. So this isn't about, being too much. It's about needing something deeper without even realizing this. This is all about your unmet needs that are really driving your actions and your emotions and your thoughts. Many of our deepest needs really come from childhood, as always, as everything is always linked back to our childhood. So if your emotional needs were not consistently met, you likely developed unmet core needs that still play a role today, especially if you have an anxious attachment style, because that's based on inconsistent caregiving, right? So I used to do this myself, growing up with parents who were there physically present and emotionally as well. But sometimes, because I was very hypersensitive, my parents will not always be able to soothe me, because again, everything kind of made me feel anxious and scared. So I was crying a lot when I was younger, when I was separated from them as well, sometimes physically, because I had a lot of allergies. I think I was a lot of times at doctors or hospitals. So this created a lot of scarcity for myself, made thinking I was being abandoned, although my parents did everything in their power they could. But for me, needs were not fulfilled consistently because I was sick. And that was the reason why then in my relationships later, I craved a lot of connection, physical connection, emotional connection. And it was never really enough, even if I got that kind of connection. But for my partner, there was always a bit too much then, because no amount of connection and reassurance was ever really filling my deep wounds I had within myself. So another example is I see if you crave validation, for example, as a kid and didn't really get enough of it, you might have now chased feelings of being seen and feeling chosen in a relationship now. And if maybe love felt unpredictable when you were younger, you might now crave certainty and this kind of control. If you felt disconnected from your caregivers, you might prioritize emotional connection a lot. And then when there's distance, you really feel anxiety and fear and panic. So understanding where your needs originate from is really important to, understand, to put all the puzzle pieces back together. And it's really the first step of stopping the self-sabotage in your relationships. So Tony Robbins truly teaches that we have 6 core needs, human core needs, and they're all important, but there are some that are really more unfulfilled and unmet, that are really the drivers in the way we act, in the way we think, in our emotions. And by knowing and understanding what they are, we can really stop the sabotage, because our subconscious mind is always trying to get these needs fulfilled in one way or the other. So, and for anxious attachers, I've found through about hundreds of results from my quiz and also from client work, there are 3 of them that are always coming out on top. I think 90% of the time. They really drive your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions in your relationships, and they will sabotage you. So let's identify which one of them resonate with you the most. Get a pen and paper. By the way, I've got this free attachment library linked in the show notes and in the description below underneath the YouTube video, where again, there are free journaling prompts, worksheets, cheat sheets. For example, the worry-free flowchart for your relationship anxiety, the self-esteem toolkit to reattract your partner, to really feel good enough from within, the anxiously secure checklist, the journaling prompts to discover the root of your anxious attachment style, the stop being needy guide, the quizzes to find out your anxious attachment style, or even your top core need, your top 2 core needs actually, and so much more. So ensure after you listen to this episode to really check out this free attachment library with so many free resources. And you can also there check out some of my offers, like my mini courses and stuff, and how you can work with me if you want to. So let's talk about core need number 1, which is certainty, meaning, safety and stability. And you need things to feel predictable, stable, and secure. So you feel most at ease when you know what's happening next. Is this you? So do you get anxious when plans change last minute, perhaps? Do you overthink every conversation, every text, every mood shift? When your boss walks into the room and their mood is off and you're like instantly on edge as well? Does this affect you? Do you overthink every what if relationship scenario? Do you crave consistent reassurance that everything is going to be okay, because otherwise you can't feel okay? If this resonates with you, then you're outsourcing your certainty to your partner probably, or to other people, instead of finding stability within yourself. And that means your unmet need might be certainty. Let's talk about core need number 2, and that is called variety, which means change and excitement. So you crave novelty, perhaps new experiences, being spontaneous. So stagnation makes you feel trapped. Do you get restless in long-term relationships, or when things get very routine and you think, oh, this is boring now? Do you love it when everything always constantly change? Do you hate it when you always go to the same restaurants, having the same workout routine, watching the same movies? Do you hate going to the same holiday locations over and over again, but rather want this new big adventure, going to different locations? And maybe you are also getting this sense of novelty through playing video games or reading adventure books, and obsessed with movies that involve different places. If this sounds like you might be seeking variety in unhealthy ways, partly, instead of embracing it, constructively. If this sounds like you, then variety might be one of your top unmet needs. Hint, hint, a lot of avoidant attachers, so our partner's core needs is variety. And that is kind of the opposite to certainty. So it's more like uncertainty. Need number 3, and can you guess it? It is significance. So significance means feeling important, feeling valued. So do you want to feel seen, chosen, feel like you really matter? Do you feel maybe worthless when your partner isn't giving you attention? When your partner chooses to meet his friends over meeting you, when he cancels plans with you and rather maybe wants to help out a friend when he's moving, or when his sister is calling him and you rather wanted to spend an evening with your partner? Do you overgive or overperform to kind of prove your worth, or to really be close with your partner? Do you take it personally when your partner is distant? If any of these, hit home, then significance might be your main unmet needs. And when it's unmet, it really triggers, deep insecurity. The next needs is connection and love, meaning, emotional closeness. It could also mean physical closeness. You crave deep, meaningful bonds. Being alone for too long makes you feel empty, or just chit-chats and small talk is something you really don't like. You don't need to have 20 friends. 2 good, true, loyal friends who you can talk about anything, your deepest desires and problems is more than enough. Do you feel abandoned when your partner pulls away, even slightly? Do you struggle with casual dating because you always want something deeper? Do you lose yourself in relationships easily, making their emotions your emotions? So if this is you, connection and love is maybe your core need. 5th core human need from Tony Robbins' system is growth. And this is something for me personally that became much more important over the last years, since I stumbled into attachment theory and when I healed my anxious attachment style. Because before that, growth was something I was not interested in, and it really changed everything in my life, literally. This was something I started being obsessed about. It really became a hobby, my job, and everything, because I created such a big transformation in this area. That means our top needs can change depending on our growth and depending on the period we are in life and what we've experienced, and based on our attachment style, basically. Because again, the anxious attachers have the same unmet needs. Anyway, growth is all about personal development and learning. You need to feel like you're always evolving, for example. Stagnation is one of your biggest fears. And also, by the way, this can create anxiety because maybe you now want that your partner also has the same interest. This can actually kind of create like a draft between you and your partner, or between you and your friends, because if you're constantly evolving now and really deep diving into this sector, and your friends don't, and your environment doesn't, and your partner doesn't, this can also create like a change, right? If you're becoming this new version of yourself, this new upgraded version, and other people around you don't, and you don't understand them anymore, they don't understand you, this can also make a huge shift for yourself. Just a little FYI, but it's a good change, let me put it this way. So anyway, do you constantly seek self-improvement? Do you get bored in relationships where you don't feel challenged, or where you feel nothing is really evolving into something, where you be in the same cycle over and over again? Do you outgrow your partner and move on too quickly, or where you're in this growth period and now you're seeing these signs, hey, you know what, you've already grown this much, but your partner's kind of still here, or they're growing too slow and you rather want them to become securely attached as well, or learn more tools that you've learned. If this is you, maybe growth is one of your top needs as well. And now contribution is all about giving back and impacting others. Like, you need to feel like you're really making a difference, not to feel seen and important. Yeah, really careless contribution. Like just because you're doing good, not because you want to feel good. If that makes sense. Do you feel like you're most fulfilled when you're helping others? So do you feel sometimes you may be giving too much to the point that you're very exhausted and just putting yourself last and just giving and giving? Do you struggle to receive maybe even love and compliments and simple things, or asking for help because you're so focused on giving and doing things for other people? If this is you, you might be pouring into others while neglecting your own self-care, because your top need might be contributions. Now, drum roll to find out the top unmet needs from the anxious attachment style. And these are certainty, significance, and love and connection. So these are the top 3 unmet needs that someone who has an anxious attachment style usually has. So I've always, hated really small talk or social situations that felt very shallow. I've always preferred really deeper conversations where I really felt understood and where I really felt like I don't have to pretend or be someone I wasn't really. And when I went to uni, for example, and really connected with people who have the same hobby, I really felt, truly being seen and connected about something we're both passionate about. And I really felt like, this is where I belong, because everyone else has the same hobbies. So we were able to talk about things we all loved. And this is really linked to Tony Robbins' humans' core needs of connection, love, because for me, this meant really deep emotional connection and not this surface level kind of stuff. And also for me, significance isn't about getting the most attention in the room. Definitely not. This is actually more off-putting. It is more about really being seen and valued for who I am. It's about belonging and feeling not abandoned and excluded, but actually being valued for who I am, because I really struggled growing up feeling seen and liked, because I always felt like I wasn't pretty enough and smart enough and the others were better than me and all of these things. And then certainty, this showed up for me beyond relationships. Save money, because I was always saving, even when I was younger, every little penny I saved, and I didn't realize that it was my need for certainty, because the uncertainty of not being able to cope financially one day in future actually worried me kind of. So I rather wanted to spend it on something that really mattered rather than wasting it on clothes or something shallow, more surface level. So I like to know what's coming next also in all areas of my life, and to really have security, and not just emotionally with my partner, but also financially. So you really want to, so important is to not only just find your core need, but also understand the meaning you give it. For example, connection and love could mean one thing to one person and another thing to another person. Let's say it could mean lots of affirmation to one person, while it could mean physical contact and closeness to another person, and not words of affirmation or deep conversations, for example. And these core needs don't just appear in our relationships. These are really bleeding into all areas in our lives, from career and friendships and how we handle finances and every move we really take in life. So once you really recognize your pattern and your unmet need, you can start meeting these in really healthy ways that really serve you more consciously. And I will really talk you through step by step on how you can fulfill your own needs in another episode of this mini series. So when we don't recognize our unmet needs, we end up trying to meet them in ways that don't actually work. It's like when I first started on Instagram, checking my followers every day and posting more out of pressure was not working. My underlying need was actually significance. I wanted to be seen. I was pushing so hard for the results, but it was just draining me. He did the opposite. It made me feel not good enough. But then I was so overworked and overwhelmed, I completely disappeared from Instagram for a week. And guess what? When I came back, I had more followers than I gained over these times when I was posting and pushing myself every day. So in relationships, when we are not clear on our needs, you might push yourself too hard as well, becoming clingy or needy or overgiving. And instead of connecting the need that you actually wanted, your unmet core needs, you end up pushing people away without even realizing it. So just like with Instagram, right? When you let go of the pressure and focusing on just being authentic and let things go, just show up more naturally, everything can more fall in place. And if you don't show up with anxiety only. So let me share with you some examples about each of these 3 core needs for someone who has an anxious attachment style. Certainty first. So I used to need so much certainty that I would constantly ask for reassurance from my partner. Do you still love me? Are we good? Are you committed? Like, what is our future going to look like? Are we going to get married? And all of these things. And even if we talked about this already, and even if he told me he's okay, I still asked, hey, are we good? Are you okay? Do you still love me? And when I didn't hear the answer I wanted, or if you already gave me the answer and I kept asking, pushing, I would just feel very triggered, insecure, pulled back, or pushed harder. Yeah, and it was never enough because this unmet need was mine to fulfill and not from my partner to fulfill. And you might text your partner throughout the day a couple of times. You might be the ones giving and giving and giving and chasing, and your partner just responds sometimes. Or you might create these rules, these relationship rules to feel secure. Or you might overthink so much just in hope to really get the certainty to know, hey, you know what? At least now I've tried to check out every option just to make sure I'm safe, my partner doesn't cheat, and we're going to be okay in the future. Yeah, and talking about uncertainty and overthinking. So if you're ready to go deeper, you can grab my How to Stop Overthinking mini course. It's a course that helps you to stop overthinking in your relationship with your avoidant partner in just 4 steps. So in this course, I'll teach you exactly what to do to stop this really nasty, really strong cycle of overthinking, especially powerful for anyone who has an anxious attachment style, because I have really been there where you are. I used to be anxiously attached, now I'm securely attached, and overthinking is just one of these symptoms, but it's a very, very powerful symptom. And if we don't do anything about it, it just becomes stronger and stronger. It's important that we do break the cycle. And just a little FYI, it's just in the beta round, meaning it's this unpolished version. It's not very perfect, but you will still get the result. Once I re-upload everything, re-record everything, it will be more expensive. So if you want the reduced price, you can grab it in the show notes, or if you're on YouTube, grab it in the link below the video in the description. And yeah, learn to stop overthinking, because this is something that can really ruin your relationships and just waste your time, because guess what? We're not living in the future or in the past. We're living in the present moment, and we're missing so much magical things that are happening right now in the relationship. And now let's talk about connection. If your biggest need is connection. So I've seen this with a lot of clients who have this deep craving for connection, which is very intense, which is obvious, right? If you're in a relationship, we have this need. But one of my clients, shared her entire life story with all of her vulnerable parts on her second date. But that made the person she was dating completely feel overwhelmed. Maybe that you can relate to something like this, where you overshare maybe things too soon for hoping to create intimacy, but this might just be too much too soon, or you maybe still continuing this pattern of oversharing, of overgiving, of being too close in your relationship, and then you're being told you're too much. Or you might feel abandoned over little small things in your relationship, delayed reply, or when you are just the one always wanting to suppress your true feelings to really just keep the peace. And then let's talk about significance, the third need. And if this is your need or your unmet needs, then listen up. So I used to have this need to feel seen and chosen and valued so badly that I really constantly, needed these big gestures in my relationship. I also, spent so much money in my past relationships, on these games and birthday presents that I spent so much money on this, on like going on holiday, as I paid for my partner and me at that time, just to really like, yeah, feel seen as well. And then in my current relationship, I was seeking compliments, and my partner is really, really bad and words of affirmation, which I didn't know at that time. So I took it very personal, but my partner never gave me a compliment. And at that time, I actually lost a lot of weight. So I was feeling okay at that moment, but I was like, why is he never telling me I'm pretty? So as the years continued, I was like, okay, on days when I really felt crap about myself and I never heard a single word about how I look, it made me feel shittier and shittier. But this is what it does. If you have this need of validation, this can open up this wound more and more if you rely overly on external things to feel good enough. And that's what I've really learned. So for you, it might be trying to prove your worth through overgiving as well. Or maybe you might get triggered when you are not made to feel special on your birthday or Valentine's Day or just on a normal day. Or you might unconsciously create just, let's say, drama just to feel chosen or to feel special. Or you might push yourself trying to work out extra hard in the gym, to try to climb the corporate ladder just, at any cost, even if that's not really your thing or just for the wrong reasons. There's nothing wrong with, creating these big achievements or working out if it's for the right reasons, not for other people. And the first step of breaking these patterns is, first of all, know your unmet needs and know how right now you're showing up to try to fulfill this need in your unhealthy ways. Again, if you have a need, for example, of connection and love, how are you trying right now to get this need met in your relationship? Maybe you're starting fights a lot of times. Maybe you're snapping at your partner all the time because this bit of connection is more than if you would have no connection. That's completely possible. Or again, if you have this need for certainty, you overthink constantly because that's better than having no certainty. Again, our subconscious mind is always trying to get your need fulfilled, no matter how, in the fastest way possible, even if it will be damaging for you long term. And now I've promised you, I give you a shortcut to find out your unmet needs. If you're multitasking, cooking, driving, taking yourself out on a walk or on the way to work or on the way home, and right now you're still a little bit confused either about what is your unmet core need or what is your needs you're trying to fulfill every day, take a 3-minute quiz to get certainty about your unmet needs. It's called Discover Your Top 2 Relationship Needs. Super fast, super fun. It's a digital quiz, and enjoy. So you've just uncovered the number one thing that really drives your anxiety and why your anxiety in your relationship and why you're sabotaging it so badly, right? Because your subconscious mind is simply trying to fulfill your needs. So it's actually not really sabotaging, it's actually trying to fulfill it, but in the fastest way possible, even if it's in an unhealthy way. And this really helped me personally change everything in my relationship, because then I knew, hey, you know what? This is how I can now fulfill my needs in a healthier way. I don't have to do this, I can do it through this way. As a quick summary, if it's helped so far, if your unmet need is certainty, you need to build inner security, not outsource it through reassurance from your partner, for example. If it's connection or love, you need to create deeper emotional intimacy with yourself first. If it's significance, you need to recognize your inherently worth already and give yourself the validation you were seeking from your partner and other people without chasing your partner for validation. Otherwise, these needs will keep running the show behind the scenes. But now you see them, and that changes everything. So again, if you missed part 1 where you can learn how to separate healthy from unhealthy needs, check out this video or this podcast episode. Take the quiz to really make sure you know exactly your top 2 subconscious relationship needs. The next video in this needs series is how to stop self-abandoning. This is really another key video you don't want to miss out on. Thank you so much for doing the inner work with me. See you in the next episode, and change in your relationship starts with you thought by thought, action by action, and now episode by episode. I see you soon. Bye bye, Yula.